Yes, Assalamu alaikum. Now, there are a number of themes which will continue to shape the contours of the financial services industry, both in Pakistan and globally. But before I go to these themes, I would want to go back to the beginning of last year and the advent of COVID. The reason I want to bring it up is that unlike the GFC, the last global financial crisis, which was back in 2008, unlike that, this time around, this was a real economy crisis where we suffered simultaneous suspension of consumption and production. Generally, banks were coming into this crisis with healthy balance sheets, liquidity and capital ratios, and therefore they had to be part of the solution, and indeed they were, not only in Pakistan but in the entire world. We are very grateful to State Bank of Pakistan in terms of how they sort of stepped up in terms of the policies, processes, procedures, reschedulings, Rozgar schemes. They were coming up with these policies, and indeed the banks were the executing agencies. And HBL was at the forefront of the Rozgar scheme, of the temporary economic refinance scheme in terms of the investment schemes, and indeed helping out on the rescheduling side as well. Now that dovetails well into the first theme that I want to talk about, and that is technology. You see, 2020, again globally but also in Pakistan, is when we saw digital becoming hygiene. I mean, all the banks were on their digital journeys for a number of years. But as they say, there are decades where nothing happens, and then there are weeks in which decades happen. And that's exactly what happened with the digital side as well. I mean, we have seen in our own case, with our mobile apps, our Connect app, our internet channels, the transactions have gone through the roof. And the reason for that was that obviously, the clients wanted to sort of deal with the banks from the safety of their homes, etc. And then over a period of time, we saw all of them now expecting services which are faster, which are more efficient, which are better, which are cheaper. And all of that can only be delivered through the role of technology. Now, the second aspect of this is not just about the mobile apps and your sort of high net worth clients and affluent client base, but technology will continue to play a very important role when it comes to financial inclusion. And I'll give you the example of HBL itself. It took us 70 years to get a client base of 12 million, and I'm talking back in 2018. And in the last 2.5 years, we have almost doubled that client base to 23 million. We could not have done that without the digital assets. We could not have helped the government of Pakistan in the Ehsaas disbursement had we not used our technology in terms of dispersing funds to roughly 12 million beneficiaries, dispersing close to about 175 billion rupees. The third aspect of technology is also quite frankly defensive. The way we are, things are moving in the payments business, and we have seen the introduction of RAST by the State Bank. But even if you look at China for a moment, and I'm not saying Pakistan will become China tomorrow, but if we look at the Chinese example, the largest banks in the world, including ICBC, are in China. And 90% of the payment business is outside the industry. So that sort of gives us, the banks, the rationale that we need to move using the technological channels, move up the value chain in terms of value addition to a commoditized business. If we don't, that's exactly what will happen over a period of time in Pakistan as well. So for defensive purposes as well, the banks need to move and use the technological channels. And again, as I said, HBL's mantra is that we are a technology company with a banking license, and we will do everything possible to actually stay the course on this journey. And part and parcel of staying on course with this journey is, as I said, these are not about mobile apps, etc. Ultimately, it's whether we can become a data-driven company. And that's why we have sort of invested in data lake, we are investing in AI, we're investing in data scientists, so that we can use all the data that's flowing through our bank systems for the benefit of the client, because that's the only way to deliver faster, cheaper, better. Now, the flip side of all of this is obviously cyber. So all of us will continue to focus and invest in securing our own channels and securing the financial services spectrum for our clients as well. So that's an ongoing investment will happen in cyber. So that's the first theme, which is technology. Let's now come to the second theme, which is also here to stay, which is all the developments on the regulatory side. As we have seen, especially in the last 5 to 6 years, regulations have been coming fast and furious, and this is not going to stop. And this is not only about the new liquidity buffers or the new capital requirements which are there, but what we've seen on the compliance side, KYC, AML, sanctions, transaction monitoring. So the cost is going to go up, and structurally for the banks. But this is something which we need to keep a very, very important focus in terms of client delivery models. And again, the role of technology here is going to be critical, because we cannot continue to throw more bodies at the compliance issues. It'll have to, through AI and going about it in a smarter way. The third theme which I want to refer to is what's happening in the macro environment. Excuse me, and that includes the national priorities as well. Here in Pakistan, of course, we have now seen banks going in a big way in the housing and construction industry. But the two areas which I want to focus on, because that is part of the national priority, is agriculture and SME. And if I look at agriculture, it's not only about doing the financing bit. I'll give you an example how HBL is doing capacity building in this particular arena. So what we have started doing in the last year and a half, and we are now in the process of scaling it up. We started with 2 pilots for the maize crop and on the maize side and on the rice side. And there the thought process is that we help the farmer in kind. We buy the pesticides, we buy the seeds, we provide them mechanized farming, and then we also show that the offtake is done through all our corporate clients. Now, what we have seen in the context of these pilots is, their yields have gone up. In fact, the maize pilot that we were doing out of the Dipalpur area, previously the farmers were getting about 70 mons per acre. That yield has gone to 115 mons per acre. The other is the reduction in the role of the aarti or the middleman, and there we have seen more than 30 to 35% increase of the money which is going into the farmers' pockets. And that's what I mean by doing capacity creation and capacity building, where HBL is playing a very prominent role. The other part is SME, and I'm not too worried about the M part of it. It's the S part of it, where the banks generally have to have a mindset change, a mindset shift, that we have to move from collateral lending to cash flow lending. And again, you will see HBL at the forefront of this paradigm shift as we get more and more involved into the SME sector. The last thing that I want to talk about, and again this comes back in the aftermath of COVID as well, as we negotiate the third wave here, is the sustainability agenda. Because now everyone is talking about sustainable and inclusive growth. And I'm again very happy to say that HBL is taking the lead here. We have signed up on the green principles. A number of our buildings are green. We are a big player in the renewable energy space. In December of last year, we have made a very public pronouncement that we will not finance any new coal projects. So that to me is sort of walking the talk as we move forward on the sustainability agenda. So 4 key themes which will continue to shape the financial services industry in Pakistan: technology, regulation, the macro environment and the national priorities, and the fourth and the last one is indeed the sustainability agenda. I would just make some closing comments about HBL. We have a very clear strategy in terms of how we are taking this institution forward. We will inshallah continue to play a very critical role in the national economic development of Pakistan, and fully support the national priority agenda which is coming through. And I just mentioned a few sectors around agriculture and SME. The second one is continue to shape the financial services industry and the contours in Pakistan. And I've just given a few examples around, especially in the technology space, which is going to be critical. And I just want to mention there that we have very recently done a fintech investment, because our thought process is that we will work with fintechs, we will partner with fintechs, and we will invest in fintechs. And so that's going to be a major thrust for us as we go forward. And the last thing is that we want to increase our regional relevance for the clients that we serve. And from that perspective, HPL is very clear that we are going to have Go East policy. We have very closely aligned ourselves to China because, as we all know, it's not if, it's only a question of when. China is going to become the largest economy in the world. And we do think now, with the opening of Beijing branch, which happened last year, we are well positioned to support both our Chinese clients and Pakistani clients in our international network. Thank you very much.